any independent body to take any kind of disciplinary action against judges of the higher judiciary for misconduct. The only mechanism in the Constitution is impeachment, removal by way of impeachment, and we have seen that has failed. It has failed for two reasons. One, that the initiation of the process of impeachment requires the signature of 100 MPs of the Lok Sabha or 50 MPs of the Raj Sabha, and MPs are not willing to sign an impeachment motion against any influential judge unless two conditions are satisfied. First, that you must have unimpeachable documentary evidence of serious misconduct, and second, that the matter should have become a public scandal. Unless the matter has become a public scandal, even if you have very strong documentary evidence, MPs are unwilling to sign an impeachment motion, especially against an influential judge. And even where they do sign, when it has become a public scandal, as happened in Dinakaran's case or V. Ramaswamy's case, and the matter reached the Judicial Inquiry Committee, and the committee found V. Ramaswamy guilty of a large number of acts of serious misconduct. Despite that, Ramaswamy did not get removed because he entered into some kind of a political arrangement with the ruling Congress party at that time, and they abstained en masse, with the result that the impeachment motion did not pass with the requisite majority. Even the impeachment motion against Justice Dinakaran would have possibly run into the same kind of problem because he was always trying to raise this caste issue. And we don't know whether it could have been politicized if it had gone for voting in Parliament. So this is one problem. And that is why there has always, at least we from the Committee on Judicial Accountability or the Campaign for Judicial Accountability have always been calling for the constitution of an independent Judicial Complaints Commission or a Conduct Commission, which should be independent not only of the government, but it should be independent of the judiciary as well. And I'll explain. Actually, I do not entirely share the views of some of the people who have spoken on this question of what is the notion of independence of judiciary. You see, the notion of independence of the judiciary, in my view, means independence from the executive as well as independence from the legislature. So strictly speaking, the impeachment proceedings are controlled by the legislature. Therefore, in a way, the existing constitutional provisions do not make the judiciary completely independent of the legislature. And the reason why the judiciary needs to be independent of the government and the legislature is because the judiciary acts as a watchdog body over the executive as well as the legislature. And therefore, if it is controlled by the executive or the legislature, it cannot act independently as a watchdog body. However, that does not mean that the judiciary must not be accountable to any body which is outside the judiciary itself. The notion of independence of the judiciary cannot be extended to mean that the judiciary can only be accountable to itself. Unfortunately, that's what many judges and also many of us have begun to believe, that independence of the judiciary means independence or lack of accountability to anybody outside itself. Firstly, this notion of accountability to itself or self-accountability, to my mind, is an oxymoron. It's the biggest conflict of interest that you can have. Mr. Venugopal spoke about it, that you cannot expect, judges have a class interest, and therefore you cannot expect that judges will be able to independently or dispassionately judge their own brothers with whom they are sitting in court or outside court all the time. And therefore, if you have to set up a body which can independently and credibly investigate or inquire into complaints against judges and take action against judges for misconduct, it must be a body which is independent of the judiciary as well. And that is why our Committee on Judicial Accountability, or the Campaign for Judicial Accountability, has been advocating the constitution of a judicial we have been advocating the constitution of a Judicial Conduct Commission as a permanent full-time body. You see, this is very important. The present bill, the Judicial Standards and Accountability Bill, this constitutes two committees. One is called the Oversight Committee, the other is called the Scrutiny Panel. Both these committees are ex officio bodies, which means that they consist of sitting judges, and in the Oversight Committee there is, I think, Attorney General is there as one of the members. He is also an ex officio person. Now the problem with having an ex officio body is that these sitting judges, there will be 3 sitting judges, 1 Attorney General and one retired Chief Justice. So that 4 out of the 5 persons are sitting ex officio members. Now these people do not have the time, because all these things, even when the inquiry committee in the Justice Dinakaran case was constituted, one of the problems that we constantly had was that because one of the members of this inquiry committee was the Chief Justice of Karnataka, for every meeting he had to come from Bangalore, leave his judicial work and come to attend the meetings or the proceedings of this committee. That disturbs your judicial work. You do not have, as a sitting judge, you cannot devote adequate time to this process of inquiry and investigation against judges. That is why we have been saying that this body, the Conduct Commission, must be a full-time body, not an ex officio body. Must consist of retired people or people who do not have any other assignment but are able to devote full time to it. Secondly, it must be a body which is independent of the government as well as independent of the judiciary. So what we had suggested was one member to be appointed by a collegium of all the judges of the Supreme Court. Second member to be appointed by a collegium of all the Chief Justices of the High Court. Third member to be appointed by the Union Cabinet. So the government can appoint one person, but after appointment, that person will not be controlled by the government. He will be completely free. He will have full security of tenure. Fourth member to be appointed by a committee of leaders of opposition of both houses of parliament plus the vice president, or maybe including the speaker. So these 4 can appoint a fourth member. A fifth member to be appointed either by, could be all the members of the Lokpal, if the Lokpal is constituted, or a committee consisting of Chief Election Commissioner, Comptroller and Auditor General, Chairman NHRC, etc. So you have 5 members appointed by 5 different collegiums who will constitute a full-time body, and this body will have full independence from the government as well as from the judiciary. This body will have the authority to entertain complaints against judges. Anybody can make a complaint against any judge, and if that body finds that there is a prima facie substance in that complaint, they can appoint a inquiry committee of 3 retired persons, either 3 retired judges or somebody else, who will go into those charges just as the judges in the inquiry committee goes into the charges. If they find that the judge is guilty of misconduct, the matter must come back to the Conduct Commission. If they agree with that finding and they recommend the removal of the judge must be removed. The matter need not go for voting in Parliament, which is capable of being politicized. Of course, this will require a constitutional amendment, and therefore we had in fact drafted a constitutional amendment bill way back in 1997 and circulated it to all the members of Parliament to this effect. Now, what has been proposed in this bill is a oversight committee which consists of one retired Chief Justice, chaired by a retired Chief Justice, consists of two sitting judges, one sitting judge of the Supreme Court, one sitting judge of the High Court, or is it two sitting judges of the Supreme Court, then the Attorney General, and anyway, basically you see it is dominated by three sitting judges, this oversight committee, and there is one retired Chief Justice, and then there is the Attorney General. Now the problem with the Attorney General is, Attorney General has two disqualifications in my view from being in such a committee. First disqualification is that the Attorney General holds office at the pleasure of the government, so he is controlled by the government, and therefore you have a person in that oversight committee who is controlled by the government, and that renders the judges, creates a problem for the independence of the judiciary. The second problem with the Attorney General is that he is having to appear before these judges every day in various cases. So if it's a complaint against a judge before whom he is appearing on a daily basis, again he has a problem and an embarrassment in dealing with those, a conflict of interest in dealing with those, with that complaint. So therefore, and this is an ex officio body, meaning it has three sitting judges, Attorney General, who are all very busy people. So therefore, this is clearly not the right appropriate committee. Then the scrutiny panel is even worse. It consists of two sitting judges of the same High Court. If there is a complaint against the judge of the Delhi High Court, the scrutiny panel consists of two sitting judges of Delhi High Court plus one retired Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. Now, this is riddled with conflict of interest. How can brother judges of the same judge deal with a complaint against his brother judge with whom they are sitting in and out of court all the time in a dispassionate manner, in an objective manner? And that is why this parliamentary committee has recommended that no, instead of having two sitting judges from that court, you can have two sitting judges from some other court. I mean, there is, apart from the problem of disrupting all their judicial work, again making an ex officio body, there is, as Mr. Venugopal said, brotherhood among judges, and therefore we have been saying that there has to be a completely independent Conduct Commission and a completely independent inquiry committee which is constituted for inquiring into any complaint. In fact, if you look at the constitution of the Lokpal, as we have proposed, the Lokpal is precisely such a body. The Lokpal is completely independent of the government, and the Lokpal is completely independent of the judiciary as well. The Lokpal in our bill consists of 11 members who are chosen in a manner that there is a 8 to 11 member selection committee in which there is only one member from the government, that is the Prime Minister, only one other politician, that is the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha. Then you have two sitting judges of the Supreme Court in the selection committee, chosen by all the judges of the Supreme Court together. You have two sitting Chief Justices of the High Court, also chosen by all the judges of the Supreme Court together. You have the Comptroller and Auditor General of India and the Chief Election Commissioner and the last three chairmen of the Lokpal. So this constitutes your selection committee. It's a very broad-based selection committee which shall go about the job transparently. Of course, in the Lokpal bill, this body, as we have envisaged, will only go into complaints of corruption against judges. So they will only look at criminal investigation and prosecution of judges for corruption. We have not given them the jurisdiction to look at misconduct for the purpose of removal, but in my view, in my personal view, that job can also be entrusted to such a body which is independent of the government as well as independent of the judiciary. In any case, we can have either model, either the Lokpal kind of model or the other model that I have mentioned, the Conduct Commission of 5 different collegiums selecting 5 different people, etc., which can do that job. Then there is this issue of as I said, the question of criminal investigation of judges for corruption or for any other criminal charge is not dealt with by this bill at all, nor is it dealt with by the parliamentary committee report. We were told all the time when in this whole debate on the Lokpal bill whether the higher judiciary should be investigated by the Lokpal or not, the government kept telling us that no, we are bringing the judiciary in by way of a separate body called the Judicial Judicial Standards and Accountability Bill. But thereafter we find that there is no mention about criminal investigation of judges in this bill. It doesn't deal with criminal investigation at all. And therefore criminal investigation of judges has been left to the present system, which is investigation by a police controlled by the government and thereafter approval to be given by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. In the first case, the police involves compromising the independence of the judiciary because the police is controlled by the government, unlike the Lokpal police which will not be controlled by the government. And in the second problem is that you have to take the permission of the Chief Justice of India, which involves conflict of interest. We have seen that successive Chief Justices of India have hardly ever given permission for investigating judges. Sometimes because the judge against whom permission was sought happened to be a friend of the Chief Justice, happened to be an appointee of the Chief Justice, and sometimes because the Chief Justice, though being a very honest Chief Justice, felt that it was his duty as the head of the judicial family to protect the image of the judiciary. So therefore, that's been a problem. Now there is this three other minor things. One is the recommendation in the bill as well as in the parliamentary committee report for keeping the proceedings before the oversight committee and the scrutiny committee completely confidential. Which means that as soon as you make a complaint to a judge, against a judge to any of these committees, to the oversight committee, after that the whole thing goes into a black hole. Nobody will come to know as to what your complaint was because you are prohibited under pain of being sent to jail from disclosing the contents of your complaint. The whole process remains completely secret, completely shrouded in secrecy. Nobody will come to know as to what your complaint was, how it was dealt with, and will go into a black hole. Which means, particularly when you have a scrutiny committee consisting of two brother judges and one retired Chief Justice of the same High Court, where the chances are that even if you have made a very credible, proper complaint with documentary evidence, it will still be rejected. But thereafter, on pain of prosecution and being sent to jail, you are prohibited from disclosing it to the public that look, I had made this very serious complaint and this is how it has been dealt with. So therefore, I for one would never ever make a complaint to such a body where I know that it is going to be dealt with and it will go into a black hole. Because the only small modicum of accountability of judges that we have today is that you can at least expose them in the media. But thereafter you have foregone even the opportunity of exposing them in the media by putting this whole thing in a black hole. Then there is this problem of frivolous and vexatious complaints. Of course, the Parliamentary Standing Committee has taken care of it to some extent. The bill proposed that if your complaint was found to be frivolous or vexatious by this oversight committee or by the scrutiny panel, you could be sent to jail for 5 years. I mean, that was a totally draconian provision, and given the fact that these people who will be dealing with it are brother judges of the judge against whom you have made the complaint, there is a strong chance that even if you have made a perfectly bona fide complaint, your complaint will be held to be frivolous and malicious, and therefore you end up in jail for 5 years. Fortunately, this parliamentary committee has toned that down to some extent. They have said that the punishment cannot exceed 6 months for that, but to my mind there should be no jail for that and certainly not imposed by this committee. That you can be penalized, some kind of fine, but for that the committee who decides that should be an independent committee. Then of course this last problem of the standing committee making this recommendation that judges cannot make unwarranted remarks about other functionaries, this is absurd. Everybody has said that. It's an utterly absurd recommendation. How can you prohibit judges from making remarks whenever remarks are necessary? If the executive is behaving in a very malafide manner, if some minister has done something to try and influence the judicial proceedings, etc., obviously remarks will have to be made. What is warranted, unwarranted cannot be determined by any other authority. Therefore, you can't, of course, in my view, sometimes judges do make very, very unfair remarks, etc. That can be a charge of misconduct against that judge, which can be taken before the Judicial Conduct Commission. If there is a judge who constantly misbehaves in court by making all kinds of unwarranted comments, etc., you can make a complaint against that judge to an independent Judicial Conduct Commission. That would be a kind of misconduct for which he can even be removed if necessary. But not certainly no parliamentary body. And this whole notion of adding members of parliament to this oversight committee which this parliamentary committee has recommended, they have said that though the scrutiny committee or the oversight committee should not be dominated by judges, but they say that you should add members of parliament, you should add the attorney general and so on to it, which again gives you the worst of both worlds. So they say judges should remain, sitting judges should remain. On top of that, you add sitting MPs and you add the sitting attorney general. So you have created a body which suffers not only from the problem of compromising the independence of the judiciary by making it subservient to parliament or to the government, but also suffers from the additional problem of having conflicts of interest in having sitting judges and that. And that is why we have been saying that this body, the Conduct Commission, whatever you create, must be completely independent, full-time body, completely independent of the government, and completely independent of the judiciary as well, though it can have retired judges, but not retired judges who are accountable to the sitting judiciary. Thank you very much.
Venugopal has explained himself, he has to go for a point. But he told me this. He said that's his final view, that there are serious modifications required in this bill. This bill can't go through as it is. And of course, he says the judicial standards should be omitted. And he has made his point. Now may I ask our associate president, or rather president-elect, to make his